Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back on the path to the Baltimore and we're on tier 6, which means we're in the New Orleans. So, with that being said, let's look at our commander. We're running Azure Lane Baltimore with Norman, Scott, and Isiroko Yamamoto as our inspirations. We have Beyond Range, Igniter, Absolute Ammunition, and Fixated with Fully Packed as our skills. Let's look at our equipment. We are running Aiming Systems Mod 1. We are running Propulsion Mod 2. This might get switched out for steering gears depending on what you prefer. But for now I'm running that. Concealment System Mod also. So to get that concealment down even better. Again, this could be swapped out for steering gears. Depends on what you want. Now, loadout. We are running the sonar consumable. We are also running our catapult fighters. We're not running really any boosters. I guess we've got a global XP booster on for some reason. And then we've got community contributor flag and the type 4 camo, which gives us a minus 4.5% to detectability and a plus 4.5% to incoming fire dispersion. Alright, stats. Survivability, 35,000 hit points and only a 4% torpedo damage reduction. Once again, you basically don't have any. Don't be taking torps. Artillery. You have 9 203mm Mark 14s. They reach out to 16.4 kilometers. They reload in 13 seconds, and they have 180-degree turn time in 25.7 seconds. The first thing you're going to notice about the New Orleans versus the Pensacola is that the turrets are where you need them when you need them. You don't generally outturn your turrets. Your turrets are pretty solid. HE shell maximum damage of 2,800 with a 17% chance of set fires, even though it does not feel like that at all. The New Orleans just seems to, for whatever reason, doesn't like to set fires. AP shell maximum damage is 4,600. Secondary armament, you have 127mm Mark 19 Mod 6s. You have 8 of those that reach out to 5.2 kilometers and reload in 4.5 seconds. They fire HE with a maximum damage of 1,800 and a 12% chance to set fires. AA defense, pretty similar to the Pensacola's. 9 20mm Oerlikon Mark 4s that do 32 damage per second and reach out to 2 kilometers. Then you have the 20mm Oerlikon Mark 20s that you have 34 of that do 104 damage and reach out to 2 kilometers. Then you have the 40mm Bofors Mark II that you have 24 of that do 95 damage per second, reach out to 3.5 kilometers. And then you have the 127mm Mark 19 Mod 6 dual-purpose secondaries. You have 8 of those that do 58 damage per second, reach out to 4.2 kilometers. Maneuverability, maximum speed, just 32.5 knots. That's going to feel pretty normal because that's exactly what it was in the Pensacola. Turning circle radius, 660 meters. So pretty good. Rudder shift time, 6.5 seconds. This is a little bit on the slow side for some cruisers, especially considering we're not running any of the steering gears mods. Of course, if you do run those, you can drop that into the 4s, no problem. Concealment. You have a 10.4 kilometer detectability by sea with this build. You have a 6.6 kilometer detectability by air. You have 2 is always guaranteed, and the detectability while firing in smoke is 6.8 kilometers. Alright, let's look at the armor. We have still only a 16mm bow, which means anything above the 230 something that we went over yesterday can overmatch, which is why this thing gets punched through the bow really, really poorly. Like, it just gets smashed, so keep that in mind. But if we get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, and that, well, if we leave this on, we can actually look at our belt armor. We got 32 millimeters of belt armor up at the front underneath the guns. And then we have the Citadel, which is 89 millimeter belt here, I believe. Or no, it's 127 millimeters. 127 millimeters of belt armor at the Citadel. Again, you do have a raised Citadel, meaning if you go broadside, you will pay for it. But unlike the Pensacola, which is basically made out of Citadels, while this still has an elongated Citadel, the parts that are in front and behind the center of the ship are well submerged. Meaning if you're angling, you're generally not going to take a citadel there. However, the upper side plating and stuff is thin enough that you could potentially take citadels if they get a good penetration through the thinner plating because of that raised citadel at the center of the ship. Now, because this citadel at the front and the rear is still elongated, and there's not much room between the bow or the stern and the citadel, there is still the possibility that you take citadels, even though it's not as likely as it was on the Pensacola. There is still the possibility that you take citadels right through the bow of the ship. So keep that in mind. Alright, let's move to the overview. Sticky shot, reduced ricochet chance, that's the American armor piercing. The hidden, good concealment means the ship can get closer to enemies before being detected. That is something that I prefer to use. You guys know I like to be aggressive. In the match that we're going to showcase, I'm not going to really be able to be too aggressive due to the fact of the matchmaking, but we'll go over that when we get there. Sluggish shot, difficult to aim at long distances. It really isn't. Once you get used to the American shell velocities and trajectories, you'll do just fine. You're not going to have that much trouble hitting targets. So I disagree with their sluggish shot. But New Orleans, the first U.S. heavy cruiser of the new generation. The key difference from the preceding cruisers was her remarkably reinforced armor. Taking into account her limited displacement, the ship boasted a successful balance of armament, protection, and speed. She entered service in 1934, and there were 7 ships in the series. And as always, if you can name the other 6 ships in the New Orleans class, first person to do it, I'll pin you. So let's take a look at her. I know she's not the best looking with this camo, and honestly, if we go back to loadout, I probably have a camo that I can, yeah, I've got permanent camos that I can swap on. We've got the VE Day camo, which is pretty sexy, and then we have the Stars and Stripes camo. You guys know I love the Stars and Stripes, but that VE Day camo also looks pretty good. I use that on my Alabama, but we'll go with the Stars and Stripes just because Stars and Stripes. But overall, she's a good-looking ship, man. She really is, and she's formidable, but also still vulnerable. So you've got to take it easy. You don't want to get yourself into too much trouble. Try not to be the center of attention when there's a bunch of battleships around. Against cruisers, you don't really have anything to fear other than HE and torpedoes. HE does tend to shred this thing, so keep that in mind. But with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we are going to be on hotspot, and we are heavily outgunned. We are against almost an entire lobby of Tier 7 ships. And so this game is going to kind of showcase how you should play the New Orleans when the chips are down and all of the odds are in the enemy's favor. Okay? The New Orleans is pretty squishy. We already know this. Unlike the Baltimore, which gets that 27mm bow, the New Orleans is stuck with that 16mm bow, still has the raised citadel, and just absolutely gets pummeled if you make yourself available. So the goal when you're in these sort of situations is to not become the center of attention. Okay? You kind of want to stick to the outer edges, not to the point where you're going to get yourself to the be useless. You don't want to be useless. You want to get to your keep yourself in a position where you're constantly able to get damage, but you're not the one that everybody's shooting at. Because when you are the one that everybody's shooting at, it doesn't take long before you just end up back at port. But in this one, we're going to showcase a little bit of a balance between armor piercing and high explosive, a utility trying to force destroyers back, as well as just punishing people that don't pay attention to you, with both HE and AP. And so that's the goal. Initially, we pull up, we've got our plane up, we don't get actually any spots here. Our cruiser behind us is spotting the Gneisenau. He spawned further to the left than I was hoping, and he's in a position where I can't really do any damage. So we're going to try to reverse. You can see that somebody on the enemy destroyer got into the cap temporarily and then got out of the cap. which means he probably just pulled in and torped and then got out. That's just my guess. He came in, scraped the edge of the base, torping, and then got out. And of course, there it is. And it's a Udachi. So we're gonna go ahead and take a shot. We have HE already loaded. We can't get all of our shells over the island, but we can get a couple, and we get a penetration for 900 damage on the Udachi. Not a big hit, but it's a little bit. Now, obviously, Udachi's swinging out. And right here, it takes me a little while to figure out why I'm spotted. And that is pretty obvious when you see that the ZF6 is out here spotted. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and try to push out on the ZF6, help the Bismarck over here, and see if we can't push the flanks of these guys. Unfortunately for me, this Bismarck's not going to be doing me any favors. This guy is going to get himself into a world of trouble, and he's going to be causing some issues for me later on. But yeah, he is initially playing relatively well. He avoided most of those torpedoes from that destroyer, and destroyer goes dark, gets into his smoke, and continues to farm our battleship while he can. The battleship should go dark as long as he doesn't fire his guns again. And you can see by the way the shells are missing there at the end that he had already gone dark, and now he can't shoot him. So ZF6 is not going to stick around in a smoke screen. I popped my sonar a little too early for this, but we're going to push out. We're going to try to get some shots on the Gneisno. We're also trying to get close to the ZF to see if he's still sitting in his smoke screen. I don't think he is, or he actually probably still is right now, because I'm not spotted. But now I'm spotted, so there's a good chance that he's actually out of his smoke. Now we've got an Iowa pushing over here, which is not preferable. We've got a Bismarck right here. We've got their Udachi over here, and we got the ZF6. That's just the ones that are spotted currently. We also have another battleship heading this direction and a cruiser heading this direction. So we're going to go ahead and turn our guns over. ZF6 is clearly running. His smoke is out. So trying to find him at this point is going to be a struggle bus. So we're going to go ahead and start focusing on the battleships, trying to get them out of the game as quickly as possible. Our cruiser's done a pretty good job of keeping himself from being shot while maintaining fire on the enemy. And he's capturing the base with the destroyer. I am now, while I am available to be shot, not likely to be shot because there's a broadside Bismarck out here. And like I said, sailing broadside in a Bismarck is just asking for trouble, and their Iowa is going to touch him, the Gneisno is going to touch him. This guy's not long for this world. And so we go ahead, try to hit, we're aiming a little higher with the HE. Probably should have had the AP loaded, but wasn't expecting a full a good broadside look. And you can see he is healing through some of the fire damage, but it's just a matter of time. His heal will run out, and then he will die. And we try to get the yoink kill here, and we shatter 4 rounds trying to hit his superstructure. Iowa makes himself available. He's sailing flat broadside, so we're going to fire a round of HE at him. Again, we've hit 26 rounds of HE. We haven't set a single fire. But then Bismarck goes down, eats some torpedoes. We are going to have to turn out. We cannot get into a gunfight with an Iowa. And the Iowa actually, to his credit, starts looking elsewhere. Which is fine with me, because if he's looking at somebody else, he's not looking at me. But just to ensure it, and I don't know if you guys saw that, 6 penetrations on that broadside Iowa. Which is what I say when I say that these American heavy cruisers, that the armor piercing is ridiculous. You do not want to sleep on it. But up to this point, we only got 20 grand. We did set a fire on the Iowa there, which is nice. Got our first fire. That's going to give us a little bit of damage. And we're going to continue to shoot the HE at this guy because with me, a ZF, and another cruiser shooting at this Iowa with HE, he's probably going to damage con in the near future. Now, I take a shot at the ZF while he's available. He's getting ready to smoke up. He's going to sit in that smoke some more. And the Iowa is angled well enough that I don't know that our armor piercing would do anything, so that's why I'm continuing to stick with the HE here. And we're going to be able to get away with it. Now, look at our positioning of our teammates on the back right corner. They've already won that side. 2 battleships haven't even, like, moved from the spawn. And so that's a problem. That's something that drives me bonkers. Like, you've won your side, move up. There's no reason for you guys to sit in the back. Now, we get another fire on the Iowa. ZF6 lands his torpedoes. Bismarck is now coming in. So, time to start the barbecue on him, but we are also paying attention to the fact they have a Peter bag coming towards me. I'm not particularly worried about the Peter bag, so I continue to try to set fires, and we get another fire. Getting some good RNG all of a sudden on the fires. Getting another fire on the Bismarck. But he immediately damage cons a single fire, which means if I can get another fire on the Bismarck, then we will actually have a really good chance for some decent damage, because it'll be a permafire. Now, Peter bag has started shooting at us, which is something that we don't want, but is what it is. It is to be expected. He knocks out one of our guns, but we get a fire on the Bismarck. Again, that is a permafire. We're going to try to get another fire, and then we are going to start to engage the Peter bag. Now, you can see I'm kind of wiggling a little bit, not a lot. Again, I'm trying to get another fire on that Bismarck. If we get a second fire on this Bismarck, I feel pretty good about it. But then this Peter bag keeps annoying the crap out of me. He keeps knocking out my guns every time he fires at me. He is shooting armor piercing, which is good for me because his HE would actually shred me. Even with his reduced HE penetration, his HE would shred my New Orleans. But he's sailing broadside on him. What did we already learn about the Peter bag? It's a citadel. It's just a floating citadel. This thing is literally a depth strike waiting to happen. And even in my New Orleans, with this much of an angle and AP solution, like, we are going to absolutely punish this man for giving us the broadside. The only downside is we have to maintain a little too much angle here to him because he's knocked out our guns so much. But there we get another citadel. We've taken him down below half health. I don't know why we're only getting one. That's the frustrating part. Now, the Bismarck has turned in and beached. He's now broadsiding us, which is not preferable because it's only a matter of time before he decides to take a shot at us. His secondaries have already been lighting us on fire. But you can see this Peter is just giving us the juiciest angles on the planet, and he gets away with it that time. No citadel, but 5 penetrations. And now he's gonna turn away from us and let the Bismarck do what the Bismarck does. Bismarck is gonna continue to set us on fire with his secondaries, and then out of nowhere, the Bismarck is going to bail out his teammate. This guy has played absolutely awful in the Peter bag up to this point. Like, he is completely underrated how good the American armor piercing is. He's kind of disrespected me as a player. He basically got into this fight and said, "I think you're a terrible player. I'm going to make you pay." But in the end, it wasn't him at all that made me pay. It was the Bismarck, his division mate. And it's at this point, I look across the map and I see that we have 2 full health battleships over there. One's a Georgia, one's a Kansas, and they've been at the back the entire time. Now, it doesn't matter. We're going to win the match. We've got 3 caps. We've done everything we can. We held them off as long as we could. We won that fight with that Peter bag. It wasn't even close. That man didn't do crap for damage to us. The Bismarck did most of the damage with his fires from his secondaries, and then, of course, the Citadel there at the end, which it was only a matter of time. I mean, I was broadside to that Bismarck for so long while fighting that frickin' Peter. But I wanted to take him out. I really did. I wanted to prove how bad that ship really is. Especially in the hands of somebody who clearly underestimated a Tier 6 heavy cruiser. Like, straight up underestimated it. He's just sailing around broadside letting me farm him. And, yeah, I appreciate it. We ended up finishing this match with 99,000 damage. Only 4 fires, 105 hits with the main guns, and 4 citadels on that Peter. We did everything that we could, and I think, given the circumstances of being against almost solely Tier 7 battleships and, well, Tier 7 ships, period, other than the Gneisenau who was there, I think we did pretty good. We went up against the Udachi, we went up against ZF6, we went up against the Gneisenau, went up against the Peter bag, we went up against the Iowa, and we went up against the Bismarck on our side of the map in a Tier 6 heavy cruiser that is squishy. And we managed to pull out 100K out of it. So I hope this gives you guys a little bit more insight in how you should try to approach the New Orleans in a down-tiered situation. Now, obviously, if you're against a bunch of cruisers, you already seen how effective this thing can be against cruisers. It's very good. Just like any American cruiser, for that matter. But it's very good in a 1v1 versus cruisers. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. This was a solid match. 99,000, end up top of the leaderboard. 2,289 base XP, even though we didn't get a single kill. So if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.